Hi, so this is the first of 3 videos about ICE questions. I was a GP registrar, or a ST3 as it would be now, when I first ever came across the concept of ideas, concerns and expectations. And I'm pretty sure I had no idea how important they were and just asked the questions to try and get through the exam. Over time, I've come to realise just how important these questions are, make a massive difference in many consultations to getting the most accurate diagnosis, best treatment options for the patient, and allows you to really reduce your consultation times. So what I'm going to do in these 3 videos, I'm going to describe 8 takeaway points for how you ask ICE questions and how you can adapt them in each consultation, and then going to work through some examples. My advice would be watch all 3 videos all the way through, then rewatch this first one, make some notes on phrases you could try and any other notes you want, and then try them out. Then come back and watch the second video, again make some notes, try them out, and then the third video. There are lots of tips and advice in the other consultation videos on this channel, so please watch those as well because they're important. So first takeaway point is you can divide up ideas, concerns, expectations, each one into 2 parts. The ideas can be the thoughts the person has on the diagnosis it could be that they've got, but also can be what might be triggering off, what might be causing the condition to develop. The concerns question could be what's the worst diagnosis that could be going on, but it could also be what's the worst impact that might develop as a result of this condition. And then the expectations can be medical and non-medical. So medical could be tests and treatments they were hoping for, and non-medical could be things like sick notes. So an example could be you have a man with abdominal pain. He might think that it's caused by having more takeaways recently, and he thinks that's caused an overgrowth of bacteria in his gut. His concern is actually he's worried it might be bowel cancer, and because it's affecting his ability to drive because he keeps going to the toilet all the time, he's worried he might lose his job. His expectation is that he's going to get a test for bowel cancer. He would like some antibiotics to get rid of this bacteria, and he wants a sick note to see him through until he's finished his antibacterial antibiotic course. So if you're asking symptom-based questions, you probably won't find out any of this information. You might find out about the bowel cancer potentially. And then when it comes down to the management plan, you'll give over your management plan. The patient won't be happy and you'll have no idea why. And the patient might throw out some things like, oh, what about some antibiotics? Or, yeah, I need a sick note. And you will have no idea why the patient wants this. The consultation is going to go for a lot longer rather than be 2 or 3 minutes of management discussion. It could go on and on and on. You might organise some tests, still not really understanding what's going on, and then you get another consultation where again you're going around in circles, not really understanding. So try and make ICE questions an important part of your data gathering, and this is going to improve your consultation times. Second takeaway point is do not use the word ideas or expectations in consultation. Replace them with the word thoughts. Now, I always use the word thoughts because everyone has thoughts, whereas ideas sounds a bit more impressive, and people can be embarrassed that either they don't have any ideas or they're embarrassed to kind of say their idea because it just sounds too grand and they're not the doctor. And that's where you often get this knee-jerk response sometimes from patients if the question's asked in a bit of an awkward way. Well, I don't know, you're the doctor. Same for the word expectations. Thoughts is softer, expectations sounds a bit more demanding. Number 3, look to soften your language so that it does not make the patient feel like they've been put on the spot and they have to answer. So for example, you could give a short introduction explaining why you're asking the question. Number 4 would be adapt your question based on the information you've already obtained in the consultation, and it's one of the ways to make the question sound more natural. So the patient's already told you something they think is going on, then your adaptation will be other than X, did you have any other thoughts about what might be going on? Number 5 would be look out for the window of opportunity to be able to start introducing the ICE questions. So this allows the flow of the consultation to be much better, and with the adaptations for any information you've obtained already, means the ICE questions come out in a more conversational way. So for example, if the patient says they've looked up their symptoms, wonderful, that's your window of opportunity. Oh great, what did you find when you were looking up about your symptoms? And then depending on what the patient comes back with, you would then follow your scheme of asking nice questions. They might give you a concern, they might give you a diagnosis, a trigger, who knows, and then you would follow that up. Ideally, ask ICE questions before the end of the consultation. So I tend to try and ask the ICE questions after I've got a fair idea about the range of symptoms. So I'll ask a couple of open questions. I usually ask for the timeline of the symptoms, and then at that point I'll ask the ICE questions. I would certainly always ask it before I start systemic inquiry or red flags. Number 6, if you're given an answer, always ask why. Just being given the headline doesn't mean you understand the thought process about how you got there, and that can be actually the important part of then negotiating the management plan towards the end. So you get more insight into their health understanding, and this goes for if the patient volunteers an ICE answer, as well as if you've got it from asking your ICE questions. Number 7 would be people are always allowed more than one thought. So if they give you a thought, ask for another one. And that's the same for ideas, concerns and expectations. And finally, number 8, be prepared with some response lines if the patient doesn't understand the question or if they throw it back at you. When you practice the ICE questions in real life, reflect each time, how did that question go? How did the patient respond? Did they understand? Did they feel awkward with it? How could you have changed it? How could you have used the information you had already to adapt how you said, so that each time you get better and better? So let's start with an ideas question, and we're going to use points 1, 2 and 3, so dividing it up, using the word thoughts and softening the question. So a standard question could be, did you have any thoughts about anything that could have triggered this problem off? And then because asking for a triggers idea is actually a nice way of getting into the ICE questions. Only the patient knows what their triggers might be, and so you're not going to get the I don't know, you're the doctor response. And it's the sort of question you'd probably be asking data gathering already, but rather than kind of throwing out almost like a fact, you're asking for their opinion, which then leads in nicely with more ICE questions. If they give you an answer, you're going to ask why. So if our abdominal pain man had said, I think it's because of more takeaways, then you'd say, that's interesting. Why did you think that might cause your symptoms? And then after they've answered that, you can ask them if they've got anything else. Other than that, did you have any other thoughts about what might be triggering these symptoms off? You don't need to ask the triggers, the why question if it's really obvious. So if the person who twisted their ankle yesterday and now they've got ankle pain is obvious, but have a low threshold for asking why, because you don't really know their health beliefs unless you ask why. If you've been given a triggers answer, then you can move on to diagnosis. Did you have any thoughts about what the condition might actually be causing these symptoms? If you get an answer, ask why, then ask if you can, if there are any others. An alternative phrase for the initial ICE question would be more of an open ICE question, and that would be, did you have any thoughts as to what might be going on? And obviously I haven't used the word diagnosis because it's a bit medical. Going on is a bit more relaxed, and you might get an answer that's a diagnosis, you might get a trigger, you might get a concern, depends what's in the forefront of the patient's mind, and then you would run through the normal scheme, why, do you have any others, and then depending on what it was, you might go back to, if it was a concern, then you go back to the triggers and diagnosis potentially. If the rapport between you doesn't feel quite right, maybe the questions, the answers coming back are quite brief, maybe feels a bit awkward, then that's a situation where you want to expand the initial question. You want to make sure the person's not feeling like they're put on the spot, that you're giving them permission to say their thoughts, that it's okay to have thoughts. So something like, did you have any thoughts about what's going on? Did you look anything up, or did you have a chat with anyone about your symptoms? And hopefully then you won't get the "I don't know, you're the doctor" response. So thank you for watching this video. Next one is going to be focusing on concerns and the expectations questions.